What is up? Good morning and welcome to Mock It Like It's Hot. Happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you, but we are not here to talk about movies. We are here to talk about rookies. Last week was the NFL draft. We know the landing spots. It's time to see what we can do with these guys. Let's do a Superflex rookie draft. What is up? Good morning and welcome to Mock It Like It's Hot, Club Fantasy's weekly mock draft show. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. No Austin Amendola this week, but I have two fellow Club Fantasy people here to help me rock it out as my co-host, Joshua Hudson. Josh, you do Wednesday shows all together all the time. Now we're together on a Saturday morning. How are you, buddy?
The difference is I'm less awake today versus Wednesdays because, I don't get to bed till 3:30 at night on a Friday.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But we're here because I'm in the middle of 3 rookie drafts, so why not throw a mock in the mix?
Yeah, what's funny is I'm also in that many drafts, and I was going to put it out to those people, but then I'm like, you guys are all doing drafts right now. You're not going to want to jump into a rookie draft. But you know who did want to jump in a rookie draft? I started working with Club Fantasy just a few weeks ago. I was able to get him on the show. Chris Battistel, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. The good weather's here. Rookie drafts are in the midst. Superflex 1 QBs, the Debbie drafts are just throwing me through a loop right now, but I'm good and I'm good. I'm happy to be here to do some homework, man.
No, we are glad to have you. And if you guys are not aware of Chris, not only does he work with Club Fantasy, but Chris, tell people where else they can find you doing some work.
Yeah, with Fantasy and Frames every Wednesday and Monday. You can find my written work with Club Fantasy, hopefully soon, and with Fantasy and Frames. But for the most part, here and there, and then at FF Chris B on the X machine.
There you go. That's what I like to hear. Follow him on Twitter. Make sure you guys are paying attention. Fantasy and Frames, good friends of ours over there. So definitely good people that we like to keep ourselves surrounded with. And he is doing the other mock draft show with our buddy Jay on Monday nights here at Club Fantasy. Let's talk a little bit about this draft as I get it up on the screen here. So we, as I mentioned, are jumping in to the rookies this week. So we are going to do a Superflex rookie mock draft. Superflex, for those of you not aware, you have an extra flex spot where you can actually start a quarterback. It's basically become the norm in the industry. I always do 5 rounds, and there is a reason for that. Even though these guys hate that I make them pick out 60 players, the reason I do 5 rounds is there are people like me who trade all of their draft picks away, and they need to sign free agents to fill their taxi squad at the end of the draft. And so the 6th round are going to be the guys we're going to look at as the priority free agents, guys that you're going to go put in waiver claims for at the end of the draft. Josh just snaked me on a waiver claim in one of our leagues together. We're going to talk more about that guy just a little bit later. Before I do any of that, let's get this draft started. Looks like a Doomby is the first pick. He is in the room, so hopefully this will not be an auto draft. And let's go ahead and talk about our drafters real quick. I like to mention you guys, if you've never tuned in to Mock It Like It's Hot, a couple of quick reminders. We are not going to talk about every pick. We are not going to talk about every team. We are going to talk about the interesting picks. We are going to talk about interesting players. We are going to talk about what these guys did and help you get better through mock drafting. That is the whole point of this show. Drafting with us today from the 1 spot of Doomby, our buddy Carrington Hobbs is in the 2 spot. Ronnie Rod at the 3 spot. Philadelphia at 4. Chris chose the 5 spot. Gator Raiders at 6. Maisie at 7. Timmy at 8. Thompson at 9. Josh took the 10 spot. Our buddy from Fantasy Footballers, Joe Beldner, is at 11. And Diamond Mike at 12. Hopefully Hobbs doesn't. There you go. He just jumped in the room. Hopefully we don't get an auto draft right off of the rip. So that is how the draft is going to look. At the end, we will have Josh and Chris recap their drafts. If you guys do something really, really bad, I will pick the oops of the draft. But we'll get into that just a little bit later. Guys, let's just start this with the easiest question. The NFL draft was last week. A lot of things went exactly how we expected it to go, but things got a little weird, I don't know, right around the Atlanta Falcons pick. Chris, when you look back at this past weekend, who were some of the players that you saw were very weird landing spots, very weird draft capital, or some combination of them?
I think for me, it has to be the wide receivers that were picked at the top of the 4th round, Javon Baker and Troy Franklin. We were all expecting at least Troy Franklin to go within the first 3 rounds, albeit it's the 4th round within the first few picks. So I'm not going to give him that red flag right away where he's that day 3 wide receiver. But he's still going to have that take. So for me, it's Troy Franklin, Javon Baker, two guys that are uber talented that we could see as 4th round picks gain a significant role on their squads. And then you can see it behind my back here, the New Orleans Saints sign. I'll always talk about how bad the Atlanta Falcons draft was. So the fact that they went and picked their future quarterback at the 8th spot, who's just right around the age of their current quarterback. I mean, I love to hate. I hate the way that you dress. I hate the way that you look. Go Saints.
There you go. Yeah, we got Falcons haters. I think we got some Falcons fans in the chat. I'm going to be interested to see how they respond to that, Josh. So yeah, the late wide receivers are interesting, especially Troy Franklin, who we earmarked as a 1st round pick, and we were very wrong on that. But Josh, do you agree with those? Did you have anybody else to add to the list?
I'm going to need you to repeat that question for me because I was getting a little distracted laughing at Chris bagging on the Falcons.
Rising picks, either draft capital, landing spots, things that you just thought were weird.
Definitely Penix at 8. I think that's kind of the obvious one. I mean, Pearsall going at 31 was really surprising to me from a lot of different reasons. One, because I didn't think that Pearsall was a 1st round talent. 24-year-old wide receiver. Yeah, the guy catches highlight reels, but I didn't think he was really anything all that special. And then, of course, landing with San Francisco, where he's basically stuck for however long the Niners decide to keep Debo and Ayuk on the team. I mean, he's the 5th option, and they spent a 31st overall pick on him. That just doesn't sound like smart football, in my opinion. Xavier Legette sneaking into the 1st round.
I just want to throw out there, Jay says that Pearsall is the best wide receiver in the draft, Josh.
I'm going to need you to get off of that swamp juice, buddy.
Florida Gator fan.
Legette to Carolina, I didn't think was crazy. I mean, the fact they traded up, I did have him going to Carolina. I figured it would be in the 2nd round, but 1 pick ahead, not too bad. But Troy Franklin falling was definitely surprising, and I know Chris touched on that already, so I don't want to dive too much into it. But outside of them, I think the only other one that really comes to mind is Polk going to the Patriots in the 2nd round, because a lot of people and draft pundits that I know, they didn't think they thought he was the 3rd best receiver on that Washington squad. And him going ahead of McMillan, and I know there was obviously the injuries that kind of, catapulted Polk in the top of that. But there are people that I know that think that Javon Baker is better than Polk, and he went 2 rounds after Polk. So, it just feels to me that Polk offers something other than just being a really good slot receiver to this team that justifies him being a 2nd round pick in the NFL draft.
No, I think that's absolutely fair. I was going to say them doubling up on wide receiver, but I mean, I guess it's just weird to me because of how crowded that wide receiver room is.
But when they're so depleted of top level talent,
I said they have to start letting people go.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah, you need 100%. All the pieces you can get.
And that's fair. And then you mentioned, those were the guys there. You guys focused a lot on draft capital, Josh. I'm going to talk a little bit about landing spots when it comes to these running backs. Coming into the draft, I feel like there was a heavy mix of who people's top 5, certainly how they ranked in the top 5, even who people's RB1s were. I think Brooks and Benson set themselves apart, but I want to ask you guys about Corum and Lloyd. Lloyd lands behind a very established, very good Josh Jacobs in Green Bay, and Corum lands beside someone who is almost his mirror image in Kyron Williams, who had such a great year with the Rams. Is this landing spot going to kill their draft value, Josh?
I don't think so. So the thing with Lloyd, and we talked about this, I know Joel on our Dynasty After Party show, one of the biggest Packer fans, not the biggest Marshawn Lloyd fan. But what I find interesting is the contract situation with Josh Jacobs. He's basically he signed a 4-year deal. That's 4 one-year deals. That's how that contract is structured. We could very well see Marshawn Lloyd being the guy as early as 2025. And Josh Jacobs hasn't been the most efficient running back. If that carries over to Green Bay, I don't think he lasts much longer than 12 to 24 months in Green Bay. With Blake Corum, we've kind of touched on the fact that he's the mirror image of Kieran Williams. I saw a very interesting Twitter post yesterday, and I wish I knew who tweeted it so I could give credit where credit is due. But they pointed out
tweet.
What's up?
Was it the Andrew Cooper tweet?
It might have been, actually, yeah, where he was talking about how piss poor of a blocker Kieran Williams is. I think he ranked like 140th out of 144 running backs or something in PFF pass block grade. Yeah, terrible. Blake Corum was ranked by PFF as I think the best or one of the best pass blocking running backs in this class. So if they're mirror images and one can actually protect your 36-year-old quarterback, who's going to be on the field when it comes to third down?
Interesting.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Now
I saw that.
There's
tweet
more
as well.
opportunity with Corum than people might be leading on.
And Chris, I was going to have you just continue on that same thing with those running backs. Carrington points out that in a non-Superflex yesterday, he saw Brooks go at the 105, which just feels obscene.
Is it obscene though there in Carolina, because we know of the scheme and what Canales likes to do with his running backs? He's already come out and said that he would like to get a running back to carry the full load. That's how he likes to run his offense. We saw that with Rashad White. We saw that with his time in Seattle. So the fact that Brooks landed in that spot, they gave him the draft capital. We all know Chuba Hubbard is a mid running back. Miles Sanders has fallen off a cliff. So Jonathan Brooks can absolutely go in there. He said he's been cleared. He's been given a clean bill of health there with his injury status. So the fact that he's able to go in there, he's a do-it-all back. He can win in between the tackles. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I don't hate it in a one QB league, considering most likely it's the 3 wide receivers. And then I'm assuming Brock Bowers or maybe an Xavier Worthy or one of the other wide receivers in the 4 slot. And then the first running back, I don't hate it at all.
Chris, I'm going to interrupt you real quick.
So I know I'm watching the clock as I go here.
While Chris makes his pick, I want to remind all of you guys, hit that like and subscribe button. Get Club Fantasy to 1,000 followers. We had such a boost yesterday. We crossed 900 with ease. We are so close to 1,000, which is our goal before the end of the season. And I'll remind you also, you may want to stay tuned till the end of the show. There might be a surprise announcement if you haven't been following our Twitter about a special episode coming up later today. But Chris, go ahead and keep talking about those running backs. You talked about Brooks a lot. Do you agree that we could see Corum maybe take over for Kyren Williams? Because Williams doesn't necessarily have the best draft capital.
He doesn't. I don't think we see Corum take over completely, but I think we see him earn a role in that offense, like Josh talked about, with the pass blocking abilities that Blake Corum has, that Kyren Williams doesn't have. We have seen the Los Angeles Rams lean on a running back within, halfway through their season into the playoffs. But that just kind of shows that they didn't have a guy behind Kyren Williams that they trusted enough to be able to give a significant role. We saw it with CJ Anderson, their playoff run, Kyren Williams, Cam Akers, their playoff run the year before the Kyren Williams season. So I definitely think Blake Corum, with the capital that they spend on him, can carve out a decent role on the Los Angeles Rams, completely sinking Kyren Williams' early ADP startup value. Right?
Yeah, we talked about that a lot. That this guy was a very early ADP guy, and now there's more competition. Guys, we're going to talk about the draft here in just a second, but we do have a viewer question. Easy B did a 2 QB Superflex PPR draft. Picked from the 10 spot. I'm going to guess that means you were the champion. Congratulations, Easy. Picked from the 10 spot in all 4 rounds. Came out with J.J. McCarthy, Roman Wilson, Bucky Irving, and Jordan Travis. He seems pretty happy with his first 3 picks, but wants to know, is Jordan Travis worth a taxi spot, Chris?
Easy answer, no. I don't think he's worth a taxi spot. I'm not a big Jordan Travis guy. There's only maybe 7 quarterbacks that I would even consider drafting in this draft. The top 6 that went in the first round, and Spencer Rattler. Anyone else after that? Joe Milton, Michael Pratt, Jordan Travis.
This is why it's a taxi squad, Chris. You're just stacking them.
I mean, if you want to put them on your taxi, sure. It's not a bad hold considering the guys that are in front of them, like Aaron Rodgers, but there's a reason why guys like Keon Coleman and the other wide receivers at Florida State just didn't flourish. It's because of the abilities of their quarterback. So for me,
Disabilities, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. There are disabilities. So if you want to stash them on your taxi and just hold on to hope, but by all means. But for me, no, thank you.
My goodness, Josh, you already know my answer, which I'm going to get into, but I'm going to let you answer first. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it if it's, I think maybe the 4th round might be a bit of a stretch, but, in the 4th round, you're throwing darts at any position. If it's super flex, why not throw a dart at a quarterback? Yes, he's a 5th round pick. You don't love the draft capital, but at the end of the day, it's super flex, and over 60 quarterbacks have started games over the last 2 years each year. So he's likely the direct backup to a 41-year-old quarterback coming off of a torn Achilles who only played 4 snaps last year.
Yep.
There's a very good chance that
Absolutely.
you can now turn and flip Jordan Travis for a 3rd round pick, which already is more value than what he brought to the table for you. So I don't hate it as a dart throw. Now, I'm not counting on him to start for me.
Yeah.
I'm counting on him to potentially get a start and then turn him and burn him. So,
and
sure.
The second Aaron Rodgers goes down, you trade Jordan.
Trade block.
You cannot Jaren Hall this thing. And I would love to go back and see what people were able to get for Jaren Hall the second he was announced to be the starter. And then he went out there, completely shit the bed for Minnesota, and there was no value. But if you can get back anything higher than the 410, you won. And so Josh and I just did a rookie draft this past weekend. Might still be going on. I don't remember which draft it was. No, because the schedule, we also play each other in week 1. I had the 4-1 and the 4-3, maybe 4-4. And I took Travis first. And Josh immediately DMs me and says, Travis over Rattler? And I was like, yeah, he's behind a 40-year-old man. And he said, well, Rattler's behind Derek Carr. And then I laughed because I went and looked at my own rankings where I have Rattler 1 spot ahead of Travis and definitely should have taken Rattler. My very next text was, hopefully I get them both. Guess what? Got them both.
There you go. That's a win-win.
Exactly. They are both on my taxi squad right now. And the goal is exactly as Josh pointed out. I am going to trade them. I know they are not my QB of the future. The second they have a start, I'm going to trade them to somebody, not Josh, because he's too smart for it. But I guarantee 6 of our other league mates don't watch this show. And I'm going to get one of those suckers to jump into this. Guys, let's take a look at the draft. I like to recap the first 2 rounds because these are easily the most important rounds. So I'm just going to list these off, let you guys talk about some of these picks. Caleb Williams at 1, Marvin Harrison at 2. Quarterbacks, Daniels and May go 3 and 4. Neighbors, Adunze 5 and 6. Bowers at 7. No real surprises. McCarthy at 8. Jonathan Brooks at 9. Obviously, I was misunderstanding his value. He has moved up. Xavier Worthy at 10. Brian Thomas, Bo Nix to finish out the round. Starting off the next round, we got Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman. I've seen that in so many drafts. It's ridiculous. Trey Benson going at 2-3. Leggett and Adonai Mitchell at 4 and 5. Pearsall at 6. Then we got Corum, Polk, Michael Penix, pretty late in a super flex. Jalen Wright, Roman Wilson, and Troy Franklin still makes the 212. Is this a victim of ADP? So let's start with that. I'm going to let you guys talk about any of these picks that you find interesting, but I want to ask you right away, Chris, is Troy Franklin with that draft capital, but not necessarily a lot of talent in front of him in Denver, is Troy Franklin still a 2nd round pick in fantasy football?
I'm not going to pick him in the 2nd round. I'm comfortable, taking him early 3rd, mid 3rd. If he drops back to the late 3rd, it's an absolute value. The saving grace for Troy Franklin is that he was attached. He's going into a team attached to his college QB. I'm not going to put too much stock into that, but it is there. He has that connection with them. He's going to be looking for him on the field whenever Troy Franklin can get on the field. He does have Cortland Sutton ahead of him. He does have Marvin Mims ahead of him. So there's going to be some work that he needs to do to be able to get playing snaps. So to be able to spend that 2nd round draft capital on him is a little rich for me, but taking him mid 3rd, because you still have guys like Jermaine Burton was picked as a day 2 pick. Luke McCaffrey went in the 4th. He was a day 2 pick. And you have other guys that were taken just behind Franklin, like Baker, McMillan. Rice went really late in the NFL draft. So for me, 212, just a bit rich for Franklin. And then another surprise pick, probably out of all of them, Michael Penix. I considered Michael Penix at the 2.5, considering the super flex, but I wanted to draft this based on how I build my teams, and I don't like to wait with the quarterback potentially 3 years. So I'm going to grab a guy that could give me instant production, and that's Adonai Mitchell.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Josh, the last time we did this draft, and this is something I really wanted to focus on, we did this draft 2 weeks ago with our good friend Marvin Eloquin. Superflex rookie draft before we knew the landing spots. Troy Franklin was the 2-2. He falls to the 4th round, basically gets ignored, and only falls 10 picks. I don't know if that's a far enough fall for me, Josh.
Yeah, I probably would have taken Sinnott ahead of him. I would have taken Burton ahead of him. I would have taken Marshawn Lloyd ahead of him. Which that kind of puts him early 3rd at that point. Definitely a little early, like you said, probably a bit of a victim of ADP not having fully adjusted in a week and a half. But yeah, I mean, I get it from a standpoint that if you loved him in the pre-draft, he did still land in a pretty decent situation. So you're kind of still holding on to your priors and ignoring the fact that 32 teams passed on him 4 times, basically, or 3 times. And, maybe, like I said, or like Chris said, he does land with Bo Nix, his college quarterback. So there is a chance that, maybe something sparks and, he becomes an early target in that sense. But I don't know. I don't love it. I mean, I think really the biggest surprise to me is Penix keeps falling. Like Chris, you mentioned you don't love the idea of waiting for your quarterback production. It's still a super flex league. I mean,
absolutely.
If you're willing to wait for Ricky Pearsall to finally shine in San Francisco, you need to be willing for Michael Penix. Let's be real here.
Sure. Yeah.
Because
out of all the picks,
much more value.
Yeah, he'll gain the most value as the seasons go on, as the year goes on. Out of everybody that's picked in the 2nd round back, like he has the potential to gain the most value. So I don't 2.9's good value there.
I mean, he fell to the 208 in our 10 team, Ryan, which I thought was stupid value there at pick 20 or pick 18.
Yep. This
is a 12 team and he falls to 209, so that's pick 21. I still think that's criminal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this. You guys have heard me say this a million times already. We had Scott Fish on our Intro to Dynasty show 4 years ago, I believe. It was our first ever Intro to Dynasty show, or second ever. And Scott Fish said something that week that has stuck with me since. The cheapest quarterbacks will ever be is at your draft. You will never get them cheaper. And that has stuck with me so much to where I do not walk out of these drafts without taking those late quarterbacks. And that goes back. Chris has a way he builds his team. I build my team with just late quarterbacks, hoping for the trade value. Chris, you said something in the private chat that I'm going to bring public because I think it's very interesting. You pointed out that I didn't even notice. The drafter, Diamond Mike, was chasing the stack. He took Nix in the 1st round. He gets his teammate, Troy Franklin, a round later. Is stacking something you're actively look to do in Dynasty? Because I don't always do it, especially with wide receivers, but Josh knows me well enough to know there's one stack that I make every single time I get the chance, and that's Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, every damn time. And so, Chris, is that a strategy for Dynasty, and is that one that you employ?
It is a strategy for Dynasty, not one that I actively employ. Of course, if there's a guy that's attached to the quarterbacks, I'm an early quarterback drafter in my startup drafts. First 3 rounds, I'm walking out with 2 quarterbacks. I feel like having the elite positions in a super flex league, having the elite options in a super flex league at quarterback gives me that ultimate edge. So if I draft, if I draft DJ Stroud, I'm not actively looking to attach him to Nico Collins or Tank Dell or now Stephon Diggs. If the value drops, I'm gonna go and draft that guy. I hate getting caught with the stacks because of injuries, especially in Dynasty and contracts, and the facts that these guys can move on and go to a different team. And so what? So you can put yourself in a bit of a hole there with the bye weeks as well. Like you, I like to attach my quarterbacks if I am looking for a stack to the tight end. If I can boost the points and watch the tight end scores by attaching them to the quarterback, I look for that actively. So give me, especially if it's a guy that we are projecting to be a QB3 or QB4, if I can get that boost in his weekly scoring by attaching him to his tight end, that's where I'll go.
Josh, I'm going to kind of combine these two questions. So when we did this draft 2 weeks ago, Harrison went over Williams, and I think that's going to be a matter of taste. I want to focus on the quarterbacks here. So 2 weeks ago, we actually had a very, very similar situation, but one player flipped. So we had 5 quarterbacks go in the first round, but Bo Nix fell to the 2-6. You've already talked about Penix falling to the 2-9. My question is, when you look at these 6 quarterbacks, did they go in the order you believe they should have went, Josh? And along with that question, does Caleb Williams belong ahead of Marvin Harrison in a Superflex?
It's Superflex. The quarterback always goes ahead of the star wide receiver. Right? Okay. Like that's just, especially when you're talking about 2 guys that are considered elite talents. Like, it's one thing if it's like Marvin Harrison and the Kenny Pickett draft, right? Like, no, you're not taking Kenny Pickett ahead of Marvin Harrison, but you're taking Caleb Williams ahead of Marvin Harrison. Like, I really don't understand the people that are taking Harrison above Caleb Williams. When it comes to the order of the quarterbacks, I'm fine taking Nix ahead of Penix. I just don't think there needs to be that big of a gap between Nix and Penix. Like, there's both of them were first round picks. One landed in a much better situation for more immediate production. So I understand the value when it comes to Nix over Penix. I also think you can see the value in taking JJ McCarthy over Drake May. Drake May is going into a situation where I don't think that the Patriots will feel like they need to rush Drake May. Yes, he has all the talent in the world. There's a lot of intangibles that he possesses that not a lot of quarterbacks in this draft do. But I don't think this team it feels like they need to or want to rush a young quarterback. This is a team that likes Jacoby Brissett. They know Jacoby Brissett from his time previously in New England. He's also performed very well in other stops. He played well in Cleveland. He played well in Washington. He's got the juice. He can come out and he can sling it. He can play. He can keep this team moderately competitive until Drake May gets ready. So I think from that perspective, you can justify taking McCarthy, especially when you consider McCarthy's getting to throw to arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. And Drake May does not have that. Yeah. So that alone provides value. So, like, most of the rookie drafts that I've done and that I've seen, Drake May and McCarthy are falling to the 1-7, 1-8. And seeing Drake May here go at 104 is somewhat surprising, but also not that surprising considering he was the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah, and that's what I find interesting, Chris, is these quarterbacks, the takes on these quarterbacks. I was one who was notoriously down on May coming into the draft. He was my number 9 in a Superflex. Post landing spots, he did jump up to, I think, 6 for me, because you have to recognize the draft capital. They hopefully got him some weapons in those young wide receivers. But I want you to start with, please talk about these quarterbacks, but I want you to start with, is there a situation if a guy has Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, who I do actually have on a team, but I do not have the first pick in that draft. But if a guy has Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, is it okay to skip Caleb Williams for Marvin Harrison in that situation? Or is Caleb Williams' value in Superflex just too much?
It's just too much. Like, you can take Marvin Harrison and you can put him onto your starting roster and feel good about it, but you could take Caleb Williams with Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, and then you could dish out one of those quarterbacks and get a substantial package back that's going to be worth more than whatever Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to give you. If you look at what quarterbacks, top end quarterbacks, are being traded for in dynasty leagues, you're getting a wide receiver 1, potential future draft capital, maybe even more pieces attached to that. So you have Mahomes, you have Burrow, you have Caleb Williams. You're moving either one of those guys for a package that's more valuable than Marvin Harrison. You're not moving Marvin Harrison for a package that you'd get for one of the quarterbacks in the Superflex leagues, unless you got someone that's just completely in love with the potential that Marvin Harrison can produce in that Arizona Cardinals offense. Then maybe you can kind of just take advantage of one of your league mates. But for the most part, you're hoarding the quarterbacks.
I know I wanted you to talk about the quarterbacks, but I think this might be a way more important question from one of our viewers, ECB, back with us. We're speaking about the value of quarterbacks, and he actually just got a trade offer. I'm going to guess he's giving up Mahomes for his Stroud. I guess I need to
vice versa.
Okay, so he is giving up his Stroud for Mahomes, and he's the person who has Mahomes is willing to kick in value. What are you guys doing in that situation? I'm a big Mahomes guy. He currently has Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, and JJ McCarthy. I'm not gonna worry too much about Justin Fields. Josh, I'll let you get us started with that one.
So he has Mahomes.
He has Mahomes.
You're not downgrading Mahomes to Stroud, in my opinion, unless you get something substantial with Stroud. This whole like insulated value that Stroud has, I don't quite yet understand it. Like he's being put above guys like Lamar and Jalen Hurts, sometimes even Josh Allen. I think for a time, like CJ Stroud was the QB1 on Keep Trade Cut. Like that's how crazy his value has gotten right now.
I got really stupid during the season, Josh, and I've admitted this, and I've since moved him back. But I got really caught up during the season and moved him to my one for like 2 weeks, and then was like, Ryan, you're being stupid, and I moved him back.
I mean, I can understand it just from a standpoint that other people are valuing him that way, but he doesn't offer any sort of rushing floor. So at best, you're talking about Joe Burrow, which is really Patrick Mahomes light, right? Like I understand Mahomes had kind of a down season last year, but a lot of that was just because his wide receivers had bricks for hands.
Yeah.
But on a points per game basis, CJ Stroud was not even a top 12 quarterback last year. So I don't understand where this value is coming from. Like if Caleb Williams comes out after this year and is QB 15 in points per game, nobody is going to look at him like the QB1 in Dynasty.
No.
That's exactly what people are doing right now with CJ Stroud.
That's super interesting.
Seriously, that is what people are doing right now. So CJ Stroud, yes, is great, and I have him on a couple of teams. I even went through in one of my one quarterback leagues, and I traded Stroud just to get value because I have Justin Herbert as my quarterback. So I'm like, I can afford to, bring in some value, build up my position players. I have Stroud in a Superflex league. I'm not looking to move him unless somebody's willing to give me Jalen Hurts. Plain and simple. Right?
Yep.
You're not trading Mahomes to downgrade to Stroud unless you're getting like an elite wide receiver one attached to it, in my opinion.
There you go. So Josh says it's an elite wide receiver one, Chris. Do you have that same value gap, or are you bought in on Stroud?
No, yeah, I would agree. I was going to ask Josh, like, what would you need to attach to Stroud to be able to make that move? And for me, it's like Stroud, and then I would need a potential, like you said, elite wide receiver to be attached to that value to be able to move the quarterback one to most in the format. Superflex leagues don't really want to move. If you have the quarterback one, you don't really want to move the quarterback one. So Stroud, attach him to maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown. Give me that value that I can get at a different position to help produce the points that I'm losing with Patrick Mahomes. CJ Stroud, only 23 passing touchdowns last year. He would need to throw, 12 to 15 more to be able to put him into the atmosphere of Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes just got Hollywood Brown. They drafted Xavier Worthy. The offense is getting built around, and we've seen what he was able to do with Travis Kelce and trash cans. And now we get to see what he's able to do with Travis Kelce and some competence at the position. So if you're moving Mahomes for Stroud, I mean, like Josh and I, and probably you, I don't know if you agree as well, Ryan, you want that elite piece back. I'm
going to throw this trade out, Ryan, before you go into your next topic, because I have this trade on the table, and where the draft literally just kicked off 3 minutes ago. So I'm sitting on the clock at 102 and 103.
Ooh.
I have Joe Burrow and CJ Stroud. It's a super flex league. I have Aiden O'Connell as well as like a QB3.
Yeah.
I have somebody that is willing to trade me Justin Jefferson.
Oh.
He wants Joe Burrow in return, which I'm fine doing. But it's the other pieces that are kind of strangling me a little bit, because I feel like I could grab, Jaden Daniels at the 103. I also have the 108 and the 110, right?
Oh.
And the way that these drafts have been falling, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can get a Drake May or JJ McCarthy at 8.
Bo Nix at worst.
Bo Nix at worst, exactly. He wants Burrow, Metcalf, and the 108. Straight up for Justin Jefferson.
So you keep 102 as well?
I keep the 102 and the 103, and I still have CJ Stroud. Are you making that deal?
And Caleb went 1?
I'm assuming Caleb went 1 because
Okay.
I know the person who's taking the 101, and they've already come out and said that they're taking Caleb Williams.
So the question is, would you rather have Harrison, Daniels, and Harrison? I mean, I guess it's going to be Harrison, Daniels, Jefferson, or Harrison, Daniels, because I imagine you're going Harrison, Daniels regardless with 2 and 3.
But that's the thing.
Maybe
if I
Neighbors.
don't trade Burrow, I've tossed around the idea of taking Neighbors and Harrison because I also have Puka. I have Burrow and Stroud. Like there's so many different options on the table. This is what I'm talking about. So I'm like, if I could trade one of these quarterbacks, get Justin Jefferson to pair with Puka and Marvin Harrison, because I'm taking Harrison at 2. But now, right at this point, I only have Stroud as my quarterback in a Superflex. Do I then take Daniels to go Stroud Daniels, but then I don't really have like a competent 3. I have Aiden O'Connell. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm going to tell you right now, Burrow, the step back.
I offered
Burrow,
the 110. I offered the 110 because I want to be able to try to get McCarthy to pair with JJ.
Yeah, I was going to say someone actually just pointed that out.
Saying. Like,
yeah, Easy B just pointed that out, that you might be able to stack McCarthy and Jefferson.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to go for the 110. He wants the 108. And I know it's only 2 picks, but to me, that's the difference between McCarthy and Bo Nix.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially because I'm trading a legitimate QB1 in a Superflex. I don't care if it's Justin Jefferson I'm getting.
Yeah.
At that point.
I personally don't think I make this trade. I think the step back from Burrow to the other quarterbacks is too much for me, and it doesn't sound like you're in trouble at wide receiver. I am not making this trade, Chris.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Not pulling the trigger on that one. There's just so much question marks with the whether you get McCarthy, Nix, even if you pick Daniels there. There's so much question marks with these quarterbacks. You have a nice piece in Justin Jefferson, but you can set yourself back so far at the quarterback position. And to me, in Dynasty, it's one of the hardest positions to rebuild out of, the quarterback position. Next year, it's not looking as sexy.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Right? There's still some studs. Don't get me wrong. There's still guys that are going to be able to make a name for themselves in the draft process. But there's no solidified QB1 going into next season like there was this year. There's no solidified. If there's no QB1, there's no QB2, right? So
now, would you do it if it was the 110 instead of the 108?
I'm not making.
Still don't think I do it.
Yeah,
having Burrow and Stroud gives you such an advantage. Man.
I think they need to throw in like a Baker Mayfield-esque quarterback for you, somebody who is at least going to bridge you for the next 2 years. That's just me. Yeah, no, it's a great question with the value check on Justin Jefferson. I really like it. The next thing I was going to have you guys take a look at is the running backs. So last time we did this draft, 5 running backs went in the first 2 rounds, and it was 4 in the second round, and Jonathan Brooks right at the 112. So right there at the back end. We've lost 1 running back, and I believe that was Marshawn Lloyd, who fell all the way to the 3rd. Let me make sure I have that draft up right now. So, oh no, it's Braylon Allen, which is actually one of the questions I have started. So Lloyd was 312, and then Braylon Allen was a 2nd round pick and falls all the way to the 4th. And Scampers thinks that is enormous value. So Josh, I want you to, again, just kind of how we did with the quarterbacks. Actually, I'm going to let Chris start here. Chris, I want you to, again, just like kind of how we did with the quarterbacks. Do you think they got drafted in the right order? But more importantly, is 20-year-old Braylon Allen now stuck behind Breece Hall of value, or are people getting too caught up in their pre-draft connotations?
I think it's a mix of both with Braylon Allen. It's going to be depending on what his role is going to be on that offense. If he's the RB3, because it's a loaded room. They also drafted Isaiah Davis, is another guy that I kind of liked coming out of South Dakota there. So it's a crowded room. We're all expecting Breece Hall to be the guy. So a running back that was drafted day 3, didn't get that great of draft capital, didn't land in that great of a spot, drafted at the 402 in a Superflex rookie draft. I don't think it's great value. I think it's pretty much where we're going to see him land. The other running backs, Brooks is, running back one. I have no hate with that, picking him at the back end of the first. Benson there at the 203 with Connor ahead of him. Should carve out a decent role on Arizona, but nothing that's going to make me want to move him up to the back end of Superflex rookie drafts. The only other ones I might switch is Jalen Wright and Marshawn Lloyd, just considering the draft capital with the running backs. Draft capital is something that holds a lot of weight. So seeing Marshawn Lloyd drop back to the third, going behind Jalen Wright is something that those are probably the only ones that I would flip. But even Marshawn Lloyd, I'm not big in going into the season. I'd rather have Blake Corum between the two. And it's just, for me, he's being touted as this pass catching running back coming out of college. But in college, he didn't have that. He didn't have that profile. His highest output in receptions was only 18 receptions. And Josh Jacobs' pass catching profile coming out of Alabama almost mirrors what Marshawn Lloyd did at USC and SC. And he's got the fumble issues as well. So I don't see a direct path to production for Marshawn Lloyd, like I kind of see with Blake Corum. But for the running backs, I would probably just switch Wright and Lloyd.
There you go. Josh, I know you have similar thoughts on Braylon Allen. You didn't love the landing spot. You talked a lot about Breece Hall on Wednesday. However, is 4-2 too late? Are we overcorrecting? And at the very least, does he belong ahead of Vidal, Davis, and Irving and Herendo?
Definitely belongs ahead of Garendo. A mid-round running back in San Francisco is kind of the kiss of death, so I don't even know why people are valuing Garendo at all. Bucky Irving, I would take Irving ahead of Allen simply because of opportunity. I mean, you can tout Rachaad White all you want. 272 carries. That was one. Like, we talk all the time about how bad Mixon's efficiency is, and I think Rachaad White probably set a new bar for low efficiency because that was god awful last year. RB4 my ass. That was all volume and the fact that he played 17 games. Ray Davis, you like the player. The landing spot I think is okay. This team really likes James Cook. So I really don't know how much value Davis is going to have unless, Cook gets hurt, but I think you can probably say that about any of these guys. Vidal, I think, is a really good landing spot, but a 6th-round draft capital, there's literally no investment there. So
plus he has to get by Isaiah Spiller.
Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins.
Shut up, Ryan.
It's a loaded room.
I think I would take Vidal still over Allen, but I don't know that I would have taken Vidal over Bucky Irving and maybe Ray Davis. Just my personal opinion.
No, I think
right over Lloyd. I think you can argue. I mean, that's fine. Chris, I respect your opinion. I'm a big Jalen Wright guy. I love the kid. I loved him coming out of Tennessee. And I knew he wasn't going to be there at the 310. That's why I took him at the 210.
Dolphins gave up a future capital too to get him. So
exactly.
That's all.
Exactly. So, and that tells me the future of that backfield is Achane and Wright. Like, they got a magical season out of Raheem Mostert. You can run every simulation of a multiverse, and that shit's not happening again. Yeah. So it would not surprise me one bit if Jalen Wright starts to really pop in 2024. So, and we've seen that offense. They're going to run the football, and they're going to have some fun with their running backs, and they want to run it with speed, and Jalen Wright's got that. So I think
Josh, I'm actually going to
go ahead.
Well, I was going to jump in here because I didn't even realize I was doing this. This perfectly leads into my keep trade cut, but I didn't even include Jalen Wright because I was making it the 3rd round running backs. And it's interesting. I think I know who you're both cutting. So Josh, I'm just going to have you continue to talk about these running backs. Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, Trey Benson, keep trade cut because they all went in the 3rd round, but all in very, very different situations.
Keep would be Benson for me. I think he landed
kind of
in
thought,
the best spot.
I think this might be the worst keep trade cut I've ever created. Just throwing that out there, but go ahead.
All right. So you said Benson, Corum, Lloyd?
Yeah, the 3 3rd down running back, or 3 3rd round running backs.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, keep Benson, trade Corum, cut Lloyd. That's how I would do it. I think you could, in theory, you could probably flip Corum and Benson. And the biggest reason that I say that is because if you keep Corum, the value of the Rams scheme. that if Blake Corum ends up as the RB1 in that offense, it's to the freaking moon. Like, that's top 5 upside, right? You trade Benson because I think that there's value in where he landed, and a lot of people see him as the RB2 in this class. So I think that there's better value from trading him versus trading Corum.
Exactly.
And then you cut Lloyd just simply because, he's stuck for 4 years, right? Like,
well, I was going to say,
the perception behind that.
Well, and he's stuck, and you guys like Jalen Wright better than him. So same question, Chris. I like to do this every week. Normally I can come up with more creative ones, but I saw the 3 threes next to their name, so I went with this, but you guys have kind of already answered it. But please keep trade cut. Corum, Lloyd, and Trey Benson.
Yeah, I'm going to keep Corum. I'm going to trade Benson because, like Josh mentioned, we could probably get the most value for him right now, and I'm cutting Marshawn Lloyd.
I don't think we need to dive too much more into this one. Couple of interesting picks I noticed from the last draft, guys. Brock Bowers went at the 1-6, falls a single spot to the 1-7. Some people question the Raiders' landing spot. Some people question the Raiders' need. However, this is a coaching regime and a quarterback who love their tight ends. Does Bowers still belong exactly where he's going, Chris?
Yeah, I'm fine taking him mid first round, back end first round. If he falls there, I'm hoping he falls to the 1-9, 1-10, 1-11 because of the landing spot. But the Las Vegas Raiders are going to find ways to get Brock Bowers the ball. He's an ultimate talent. He is the top in a class above himself. Could probably fit him in with some of these wide receivers at the end of the day. The landing spot's not the sexiest landing spot. As I was hoping he would fall one more pick to the Saints there, because I absolutely I would have loved Brock Bowers tied to Derek Carr, but I didn't get that. We did.
I think you mean tied to Spencer Rattler, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. Tied to Spencer Rattler. We didn't get it. They addressed the offensive line, what we so desperately needed. So I love that. But Brock Bowers on the Raiders, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. But just considering who the player is and the talent that he has, especially in a tight end premium, I have no problem taking him in the mid first.
Josh, he fell one spot. Should he have at least fallen one more behind JJ McCarthy in a Superflex?
In a Superflex, probably. I mean, he went 109 in our Superflex rookie mock, and I thought that was insane. But I get it. I mean, you had, 6 quarterbacks go in the top 12 of the NFL draft. So you can, in theory, make a case that 5 of them should be top 10 picks in a Superflex rookie draft. So with that being said, then you have 5 spots left over. So Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze, Bowers. Yeah, I think, 108, 109, 107 is probably your range of outcomes for Bowers. If you feel like you need a tight end, or you just value the production that he brings. I personally love the landing spot with the Raiders. Luke Getsy, as the offensive play caller, is going to scheme the tight end. Cole Kmet had 90 targets last year and has scored 13 touchdowns the last 2 years. There's going to be value in Brock Bowers in Las Vegas. So if he keeps falling, sign me up.
I say Charlene says sign her up. She just got Bowers at the 1-7 as well. So
let's go.
So the value seems to be there. A couple more quick questions, Josh. You kind of brought this guy up already. Last draft, Ben Sinnott went 4-6 as the tight end 5. You mentioned earlier you would have moved him up to the back end of round 1, or round 2 rather. I apologize. Back end of round 2 over some of those guys, and he's clearly the tight end 2. Are we loving the Washington landing spot, or do you just like Sinnott?
I like the landing spot. First off, I think the only tight end in this class that is landing spot not dependent is Bowers. Everyone else you're ranking based on landing spot at that point, because there's a lot of players that are really just kind of like guys, basically. Sinnott's landing spot is great. We know how Cliff Kingsbury utilized the tight end in Arizona, especially once he got Zach Ertz. Yes, Zach Ertz is also there in Washington. It's very clear he's on the downside of his career, and it's only a 1-year deal. I've had conversations with Julia Papworth from the Ballers. She loves Sinnott. That's her tight end too. More than happy to take him at the back end of the second. I mean, he goes 3-2 here, so that's 26 overall. Yeah, I think that's a perfect landing spot.
And Chris, just kind of same question. Josh and I aren't the best college film grinders, But a couple of things I read about Sinnott is that he was likened almost more to a fullback than a tight end. Is it going to be an easy transition for him? Obviously, it's an offense that needs a tight end. They have just a lot of mid-round guys on their team right now.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great transition for him. He won the Low Man Award given out by Barstool Sports as the best college fullback. So he did have some time spent playing fullback there, did transition to tight end. But the only worry I have with Ben Sinnott on Washington is the Zach Ertz signing. Not a huge worry, like Josh said, only the 1 year. It's just that they might utilize him more as of a blocker than an actual pass catching threat because of how good he is at pass blocking. So that's a little bit of the worry that I have with Ben, but I love the pick right now. Currently my tight end 2 was my tight end 2 since January, and I have him in Superflex ranked as the 24th overall prospect. So I love the player. I love what he can do. Not saying that he is Sam Laporta, but he can come in onto that offense and have a Sam Laporta-like year because they're almost a similar player in the way that they attack the football field when they're on the field. I could definitely see Ben Sinnott holding some standalone value in that offense.
To tack onto that, Chris, like you mentioned, probably going through and becoming a blocker first.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when it comes to fantasy, that's kind of what we need to latch on to early, only because that's what's going to get them on the field, right?
Playing time, baby. Yep.
Once they show what they can do when they are targeted, that's what's going to convince an offense, hey, I got to throw the ball to this guy more because he's really fucking good, right?
Yeah.
Not every situation is going to be a Sam Laporta where he comes out, he breaks out in his rookie year and is the tight end one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Theo Johnson, mostly a receiving guy, right? Lands in an offense where they built the offense to kind of revolve around a tight end that catches the passes early. Yeah. If Darren Waller retires, that's going to open up a lot of opportunity for Theo Johnson, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe that happens. Yeah, exactly. So
I don't think it's been officially reported yet. I just want to throw that out there.
No, and that's why I said maybe Waller's going to retire, but like, Theo could end up breaking out and being like, that tight end wonderkin, right? Sitting here at the 401 where Theo goes, that's a great freaking value if that's the case. So I think you're going to have the surefire prospect. Anything after that is a dart throw at the tight end position.
No, I love that. All right, guys, I'm going to have you guys break down your draft. Chris, you don't need to talk about every player. There are 2 things I definitely want you to talk about. You made the decision to take Neighbors over JJ McCarthy in a super flex. So I do want you to talk about why you like Neighbors more than a quarterback. And then I want you to focus on your 5th round pick. Tell people a little bit about this. Is this someone people should be targeting at the end of their draft as a priority free agent? I'm going to go ahead and highlight your team, Chris. Talk about some of these guys, but specifically Neighbors over McCarthy.
Yeah, for me, at the 1-5, I wanted to take the solidified wide receiver 2, potential guy that can be the wide receiver 1. He's walking onto the New York Giants as the lead dog in that wide receiver room. He does everything different than the current slot wide receivers that they do have on New York. So I'm expecting big things from the connection of Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors in New York. So I'm going to take him over JJ McCarthy only because I don't see JJ McCarthy starting week 1. He could end up having more value than Malik Neighbors as the year goes on, but I want that elite wide receiver. I'm picking at the 1-5. I'm most likely a fringe playoff team, so I might bypass the QB4, QB3, and take the elite prospect in Malik Neighbors. And then at the 5-5, I took Isaiah Williams, wide receiver, I believe UDFA for the Detroit Lions. I play a lot of CFF. I play a lot of C2C, and Isaiah Williams, especially last year, was a guy that produced pretty well in Illinois. And just the fact that the Detroit Lions room is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Khalif Raymond, and Jameson Williams. We don't really know who's going to stand out to be that wide receiver 2, albeit Sam Laporta is the second pass catching option on that offense. Isaiah Williams would need some things to go his way to get, valuable playing time, but taxi stash, potential week 1 waiver stash that you put on the back of your bench. I love what the kid can do. I don't hate it at all. And we've seen what Detroit Lions can do with these, slot wide receivers that maybe not a lot of people are high on. They come out and then just produce numbers for us. So Isaiah Williams is a guy that I'm definitely have on my radar.
I don't want you to completely skip over AD Mitchell, so I'm going to give you one more minute. I want you to talk a little bit about AD. Mm-hmm. Someone mentioned earlier in the chat, in a 1 QB, they saw AD Mitchell go as high as 6, which is just obscene value for where you got him.
Yeah. I mean, six is a little rich in a 1 QB. Yeah. For me, 1 QB, I'd probably take him back in first. Not really going to reach up for a quarterback unless there's just an absolute elite prospect like we have this year in Caleb Williams. Seeing where he went, Trey Benson, Elad McConkey's there. Any of the guys going after him, I don't really want to touch. Ricky Pearsall's in a loaded room. Jalen Polk's on New England.
This is just the case of best player available for you.
Exactly. I'm just walking into best player available. He's got the option to be the wide receiver 2, the second pass catching option on Indianapolis. And I feel with him and Michael Pittman, the potential for red zone production is super high for the Indianapolis Colts. They just got to get down there. So they get within the 20. Once they get within the 10, I think it's all Anthony Richardson for touchdowns for the Colts. But 10 out with Pittman, with the route running that Donnie Mitchell possesses, I can see a high touchdown output season his first year.
There you go. Josh, obviously building dynasty rosters is hard building rookie rosters is hard when you don't have an actual roster to talk about with it. You went running back heavy. You were one of only 3 teams who take multiple running backs, but talk a little bit about that. But more importantly, Xavier Worthy over Bo Nix in a super flex, and then talk a little bit about Aeneas Smith down there as your 5th pick. Is that a priority for you?
Yeah, so I think when you're sitting at the 110, the likelihood that you're a contender is pretty high, right? Unless you traded your pick, and that's kind of how I wanted to approach this. All right, I'm a team that is on the cusp of a championship. What's going to get me over the top? The assumption would be my quarterbacks are pretty well set. So yeah, I considered Nix at this point because, again, you want a starting quarterback. They're valuable in Superflex. But I wanted somebody that's going to be a piece in my offense. And there's a chance in this hypothetical scenario that I probably have aging players. So I want to be able to get a young, hot prospect that I think can be a valuable asset to my team for the next 3 to 5 years. And to me, that's Xavier Worthy in this scenario. Going with the running backs, to me, it was really in the second round, who can be productive, right? Yeah. Who can come in? Who can, again, provide that extra push to get me into that championship game to win that championship.
And you talked about Wright earlier, and you think that's going to take over the backfield in an electric offense. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the players that went right after Wright, you're looking at Roman Wilson, Troy Franklin, Jermaine Burton, Ben Sinnott, Corley, Javon Baker, Marshawn Lloyd. Out of all of those guys, who's the one that probably can step on the field on day one and be at least a rotational piece? In my opinion, that's Jalen Wright. Yeah. So that's why I think that, that's where that value went. Plus, I like Jalen Wright. I'm a fan of his. Third rounds are where I absolutely load up on backup running backs.
Okay.
Because at some point, they're going to pop. The guys in front of them are going to get hurt, and then they're going to see some value. I talked about how little I like Rachaad White. Bucky Irving was that guy. And this is kind of where the talent really starts to dry up, right? Garendo at the 312. You could argue Jatavian Sanders, rookie tight ends are just kind of Theo Johnson. None of these other running backs. Maybe Audric Estime could see some value, but Javonte Williams is still there. He's a 2025 pick, in my opinion. There's nobody else. That's it. Eric All in the 4th round. I always take dart throws on tight ends in the 4th, 5th round because, again, you see those late round tight ends, they pop at some point. Go back to George Kittle. He was a 5th round pick in the actual NFL draft. I'm fairly certain that in those dynasty drafts that was going on when he was a rookie, he was probably a 4th or 5th round pick at that point too. So give me the Iowa tight end because they have a pretty damn good track record, right?
Yeah.
The Bengals themselves don't throw to the tight end, but you know what? Maybe talent wins out there. In the 5th round, the talent is just drying up. So I just took the guy that I know, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles.
So I'm going to throw one name out, Josh, because you just got him from me in a priority free agent run, and he did not go in this draft. And that's right, Tyrone Tracy with the Giants.
He did not go in this round. Yeah.
Yeah. I went
and I think that's a product of his sleeper ADP being so incredibly low that he's being forgotten about in a lot of these drafts. If I'd had time beforehand to probably like set a queue, he probably would have been my 5th round pick here. But you know, when you start talking about different players and things like that, you end up getting a little bit distracted. But yeah, Tyrone Tracy should very easily be a 4th round pick.
I was going to say, when I look at this 5th round, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because he's walking into a situation where, I mean, you have the one lead dog is Devin Singletary. Yeah. I really don't need to elaborate on that. So
yeah, when I look at this 5th round, Tracy and Travis are the names that jump out at me. Tracy not being there, obviously. But these were the guys that I put stars on. Couple of pieces of advice, because this show is about helping you get better. When I start to get to the end of the draft, I put stars. I click on their name on Sleeper and put stars on them, because then you can go to available players and sort by stars. So I see all the guys who I wanted to sign that I didn't have draft picks to sign. So use the tools that are at your disposal so you don't forget about guys. But then also don't get outbid by Josh by like 3 times your bid for Tyrone Tracy when you desperately.
You know what's hilarious? I almost ended up putting double the fab that I ended up spending, and I talked myself into going lower, and I still outbid you by $20.
Yeah, Josh bid 33, I bid 13, and the guy below us bid 11. And so Josh won that one big, but I think it was a good pick, guys. I don't have a major oops. I'm in love with what you guys did here. I think this is a very good draft. It's already been pointed out. I'm just going to talk about it again. Michael Penix Jr. going at the 2-9. He should have went ahead of Polk. Probably ahead of Corum, certainly ahead of Pearsall, but I do agree with Chris. I think right behind AD Mitchell is where that kind of break happens. So it's a very small oops, but I think in a super flex, a quarterback should have went a little bit earlier than the 2-9. So that's the only thing I would have done different. Otherwise, kudos to you guys on a very, very good draft. I'm impressed with the ADP. You guys have clearly been doing your homework. Proud of you guys. Let me go ahead and get this draft off the screen, get you guys back up here so we can talk a little bit about the end of the show. Chris, thank you so much. Welcome to Club Fantasy. So glad to have you. As soon as I heard you were coming, I reached out. You couldn't get here the one Saturday I needed you, but we landed on this day. Again, wonderful drafting with you. Please let everybody know where they can find your work, not just with Club Fantasy, but everything you do. We want to shine a light on the great content creators in this industry.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your kind words. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm always down to mock draft when I have the time. My house is an absolute zoo, but when I can make it work, I will absolutely make it work. You can find me at FFChrisB on Twitter every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. With my boys Rhett and Drew. Just absolute gems on 4th and Frames. We talk any kind of fantasy football, dynasty, redraft. We cover it all. Mondays, every second Monday on the 1 Foot Down podcast. Again, on on Fantasy and Frames. That's our college fantasy football show. So just really gearing up to get that going. We're in the midst of the spring transfer portal window. So a lot of news right now with the college football game. And then after that, 10 p.m. right here on Club Fantasy with my brother in arms, Gator J. We run Mocking with the Stars, where we have a star on every week to come on. We mock 1 QB, super flex. We reach across the board. So that's where you can find me.
And Chris, I want to get you out of here because I know you've been here on the show forever. And as you mentioned, you got a lot going on in your house. But one last viewer question.
Absolutely.
Is Lamar in a 2025 first enough for Mahomes, keeping in mind he already has 3 2025 firsts?
Yeah, I think I take that. I mean, I have Mahomes 1, Josh Allen 2. I got Lamar Jackson at 3. I don't know about you guys, but I got Lamar at 3. Doesn't have the pass catching profile that maybe the other 2 guys have, but his ability in the running game, especially if it's a 4-point passing TD, 6-point passing TD, I might just want a little bit more because Mahomes has the potential to throw 40 plus TDs every year, and that'll balance out the rushing TDs from Lamar Jackson. But Lamar and the first, I mean, it's not the greatest, but I mean, I take it. I'm still getting a potential weekly QB1 back.
Josh, same question.
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, I have Jalen Hurts at 3. I don't know why people keep dropping Hurts. Like I can't.
I got him at 4. I got him at 4. Don't
I don't understand that at all.
But you're screaming bias, by the way.
But Lamar is definitely top 5, and I think a first can definitely round out the value there for Mahomes. And I agree, Chris. If it's 4 point per passing touchdown, then or 6 points, excuse me, I'd probably want a little bit more on top. But I think that's pretty fair value.
And then Josh, everybody knows all your work is at Club Fantasy, but pretty big announcement to make for what we're doing. Let's go ahead and make that announcement.
Yeah, we chance to gift a spot in Scott Fishbowl 14. So big shout to Scott Fish, who cares. Tonight at 8:30, Ryan and Gator J will be hosting a Scott Fishbowl 14 mock draft in honor of May the 4th be with you. And it is a Star Wars themed. So I'm sure you've seen the thumbnail being passed around. We've gotten blown up with DMs for people to earn a spot in the draft tonight. We'll live stream it. We'll talk a lot about Fantasy Cares, what Fantasy Cares and charity means to us as individuals, but also the fantasy football industry. It should be a lot of fun to do the show. So feel free. We're still rounding out the draft, guys. So feel free to DM Club Fantasy FFL on Twitter. Hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page. Those are the easiest ways to earn a spot in the mock draft. And Ryan and Jay will see you tonight at 8:30 live.
I'm gonna get our buddy
YouTube page.
I'm gonna get our buddy Easy back up. Thank you, Easy, and thank you to everybody who drafted with us, everybody who commented and asked questions. These shows suck without you guys. It's fun for me to talk football, but if you guys don't give us content, we ain't got anything to talk about. So thank you for the questions, Easy. Thank you to everybody who drafted with us. Thank you to everybody who watched. I just want to remind you guys, Club Fantasy goes live 5 days a week. Talking fantasy football. We talk redraft, we talk dynasty, we talk best ball, and then we have these mock drafts to help you get better at all of those things. There is literally no reason for you not to subscribe to our channel. We even have a golf show. So just hit the damn subscribe button. It costs you nothing. If you're watching on Twitter, Josh has the link. Click the button. It'll take you to YouTube. It's 2 extra clicks. You can do this for us. Help us get to 1,000. We will be back Monday at 10 p.m. with Mocking with the Stars. That is Jay and Chris's show. I didn't check if Jay DM'd me. Do you know who your guest is this week, Chris?
I do. It's on the tip of my tongue. I was doing research for.
We're terrible.
I know.
Let me figure it out. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Well, while they're figuring that out,
Shane Manila.
Shane Manila.
That's it. I knew it.
There you go. So they'll have Shane Manila on the show Monday at 10 p.m. Wednesday, we are doing our fantasy community celebration on No Pun Intended. We are going to have several guests who are going to be breaking down for you what they will be doing during the 2024 season. You don't want to miss it. These are going to be people coming on and telling you why you should be following them and why you should buy or just check out their content. We are doing this show for you to let you see what's out there. Always remember, defense wins championships. Offense wins fantasy football, and practice makes perfect. We will see you at the next mock draft.